Weapon balance is a hot topic in the Halo community right now. Halo Infinite has launched with one of the most balanced sandboxes ever, but between plasma weapons feeling borderline useless in multiplayer, the commando feeling subpar, and certain weapons being slated for nerfs, the game still has some way to go before it's perfect. One thing that's often ignored in balance discussions, but which is still in need of improving, however, is Halo Infinite's grenade selection. Specifically today, we'll discuss the current state of each grenade, how fragmentation grenades could be adjusted, and how sticky grenades, both plasma and spike grenades, are arguably at their most dire point in the series. Halo Infinite launched with the two classic grenade types, the frag grenade and plasma grenade, a returning favorite from Halo 3, the spike grenade, as well as a new addition freshly designed for Halo Infinite, the arc grenade. For this video, we'll be characterizing these grenades by 4 core attributes, one being raw damage, 2. Room clearing, how well they work for damaging enemies behind cover and within enclosed spaces. 3. Cleanup, how well they work for finishing kills. And finally 4. Setup, for how well they work for enabling kills with other weapons. Starting from the top, I think most people will agree that fragmentation grenades in Halo Infinite are, overall, the most balanced grenade of the bunch. They pack a meaty punch, without feeling like the nukes from Halo Combat Evolved. Beyond that, they have a detonation radius and a fuse duration, which allows them to be used both as a means of flushing out enemies from behind cover, killing unshielded enemies, and as a way of stripping shields to proactively set up a kill. This means that they're useful in just about any given infantry situation, as they excel in 3 of the 4 core attributes. This takes us to Halo Infinite's awkward siblings, the sticky grenades. In previous Halo games, sticky grenades have been balanced by having reduced room clearing, cleanup, and setup potential, but significantly higher raw damage. You can see this intent in Halo Infinite by the fact that both the spike grenade and plasma grenades have significantly lower blast radiuses compared to the frag grenade, but they can each one-shot a Spartan if you land a stick. In Halo Infinite, the plasma and spike grenades have been balanced against each other by introducing a gap between the grenade's raw damage and room clearing potential. The plasma grenade has a very short blast radius but deals very high damage and is able to one-shot a Spartan at close range. The spike grenade, on the other hand, has lower damage but has rebounding projectiles that increase its effectiveness in tight confines, thereby increasing its room clearing potential. This sounds great on paper, but in reality both of these grenades just kind of suck in Halo Infinite. Unfortunately, with the exception of arc grenades, frag grenades are almost always the best choice compared to grenades which you pick up on the map. This is in stark contrast to the rest of Halo's sandbox, where, to borrow a phrase from Ascent Hyperion, players trade up and trade out their weapons. You can see this in the fact that you almost never see any grenades being used besides frag and arc grenades. Think to yourself in which situation it would be a good idea to trade out your frag grenades. It's basically never, unless you have an extremely specific task in mind, usually involving vehicles or making montages for YouTube. Now you might be thinking I'm going to ask for a nerf to frag grenades. That's wrong, we don't need more weapons to drop off cliffs. Instead, at its core, this is a problem with the fact that some other grenades are underpowered in their current state. If the same grenade fundamentals work in previous Halo games, why do they fall short in Halo Infinite? At a surface level, you might think that the grenades are no different than in previous games, but that's because the differences lie in something which is hard to detect, but is extremely important for any weapon. Both the plasma and spike grenades are inconsistent in their intended roles. To start off with, both the grenades have a long fuse time and a very short blast radius. This makes them weak as general-purpose grenades because they lack the room clearing and setup potential of the frag grenade, but the nail in the coffin is that they also fail at their specialized jobs. The spike grenade, for example, is supposed to be a close-quarters powerhouse, but its small blast radius and random projectiles make its damage too unreliable. On top of this, it has low damage and a very small hitbox for sticking players, so you're always better off choosing either frags or plasma grenades. The plasma grenade, on the other hand, while arguably in a better spot, has such a small blast radius that it is borderline useless for room clearing, and the overall difficulty of sticking players is now too high for it to be a consistent instant kill. But why are they inconsistent? The first thing is that it probably has a bit to do with netcode, but you're probably looking at some somewhat cringy gameplay of me trying to stick bots, and while it might be a diamond scrub compared to Onyx God and Mint Bliss, I hope you'll see that it goes beyond 343 netcode. This mostly has to do with player strafe acceleration. This is how quickly a player can change directions. When compared to earlier games, ignoring Halo 5, players can change directions much quicker than before. In close quarters combat, this makes it almost impossible for a person to accurately predict where an enemy will be, and it makes it really easy to dodge out of the way of grenades. And while this is extremely important to Halo Infinite's strafe metagame, this makes landing sticks super difficult. So how do we fix this issue? Luckily, this problem is easy to fix without having to nuke player movement or nerf the frag grenade. My proposed fix for this is to exaggerate the special qualities of both plasma grenades and spike grenades. Plasma grenades, as the premier sticky grenade, should have a higher amount of projectile magnetism in order to make it easier to land sticks. It doesn't have to go further than that. It would improve their function in the sandbox as a single target destroyer for both single kills and for weakening overshielded opponents. Spike grenades, on the other hand, I actually think should remain mostly as they are, but with some targeted buffs. If in Halo 3 the incendiary grenade was the superior sticky, spike grenades were always the backup sticky, and so I think sticking opponents should remain a secondary function of the spike grenade. Instead, 343 should lean into the rebounding spike functionality they've added in Halo Infinite. The grenade should simply have a higher amount of splash damage, and the splinters should have higher damage in order to increase their room clearing potential. In this way, they'd naturally be stronger in maps with a lot of confined spaces, while frags could continue to fit their general purpose role across all maps. That's not to say we shouldn't look at frag grenades, though. In terms of balance, they're in a good spot, but there is one very minor point which makes them crowd out other grenades. That is their bleed-through damage, meaning the amount of damage that's dealt to a player past the point of breaking shields. As we've discussed previously, frag grenades are widely effective because they cover 3 of the 4 main attributes. I believe that the outliers are overall damage. Currently, frag grenades can kill a Spartan at about 1/3 shield strength. This is problematic because it steps on the toes of both the plasma and spike grenade, which excel at raw damage. Similar to the way headshot damage being blocked by shields allows plasma weapons to shine, fragmentation damage being reduced by shields would allow other grenades to shine. So, without reducing the frag grenade setup and cleanup potential, we could fix this by reducing some proportion of the damage which carries through shield damage. And finally we have the arc grenade. I think that arc grenades are probably the best balanced grenade from an infantry perspective. They provide both setup potential and room clearing area of denial in a way that surprisingly doesn't overshadow frag grenades. I can't think of a good way to change them. That said, their effect on the vehicle sandbox leaves a lot to be desired, which I intend to cover in a separate video about shock damage. That's all for today, guys. As a final note, I think that the history of grenades could make for a very interesting topic that has as of yet been underexplored. From CE to Infinite, they've changed a lot, but only in ways that are difficult to see. I would be interested in seeing Late Night Gaming make an evolution video about it. That said, it's good to be back, and I'll see you guys on the next one.